Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for today's iCons informational webinar. I'm so excited to have so many first and second year UMass students from all over the world and the United States. Again, thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time to learn a little bit more about this exciting program at UMass Amherst. My name is Wesley Dunham. I'm the Strategic Communications and Program Manager for iCons. I'm the main staff person, and I handle all the day-to-day operations, including student advising. So if you have a question, please reach out to me and ask. And if you become a member of iCons, you will hear from me a lot. So again, thank you and welcome. Today's panel consists of the Executive Director of iCons, who is also an instructor in the program. We have an additional iCons instructor and two current rising senior students, members of iCons. And our goal today is to give you information about the program and especially from their perspectives. We think that's important. You should all see the panelists' name on the screen along with their role. I also recommend making sure you have a quality view option. We recommend the side-by-side mode. So if you go to the top and check view options, make sure you click on side-by-side mode. In addition, we received a lot of questions via the registration questionnaire. And as I told you in your email, we will probably not be able to get to all of them, but we're going to do our best to either answer them while we're talking or within Q&A sessions. And so if you have a question that you thought of today or you really want to make sure your question gets answered, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. You can also send that question anonymously. So just type your question, press send, and we will get to those. We will attempt to do a few questions after each panelist discusses their perspective. In addition, we'll have a longer Q&A session at the end. So feel free to ask questions. And that's about it for the questions. So I'm going to ask each panelist to briefly describe their role and who they are. And I'm going to start with our students. So if I could have Bridgie talk first, that'd be great.
Hi everyone, my name is Bridgie Driscoll. I'm a rising senior in iCons. I'm on the renewable energy track, and I'm also majoring in mechanical engineering. So I've been pretty lucky to be able to experience both sides of iCons, the biomed track and the renewable energy track. So I'm excited to talk to you guys a little bit about that today and answer any questions that anyone may have.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. Nick, you're up next.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. My name is Nick Naiman. I'm a rising senior at UMass. I'm also a microbiology major, and I'm on the biomedicine track. Like Bridgie, I've had experience working in the biomedicine track and the renewable energy track, so I'm happy to field any questions from either. And I'm also excited to talk to you about some other opportunities surrounding the program that aren't necessarily just in the classroom.
Great, thank you, Nick. Allie?
Hi everybody, I'm Allie. I'm an iCons 2B instructor. My background and scientific training is in microbiology and molecular biology. But currently, I actually also have a role in the College of Education at UMass where I do research. And the research topics I kind of focus on are designing more inclusive science curriculums and working on issues around STEM justice.
Wonderful, thank you. Scott?
Hi everybody, welcome. My name is Scott Auerbach. I'm a professor in the chemistry department, and I also have overlap in chemical engineering. I've been here at UMass for 25 years. Time flies. I'm also the executive director of iCons, and I'm the instructor of the iCons 2 course on the energy track. My research is in the field of computational chemistry, of nanomaterials, and clean energy.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank again all the panelists for joining us today and taking time out of your day. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave it with Scott. He's going to go over the slides that you should see on your screen. So Scott Auerbach is our executive director, as I said, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'd like to share some information with you through these slides about iCons, and you're probably wondering, like, what's iCons about? Why did we even launch this program back when we did in 2010? How does it work? What's the structure of the program? What's in it for students? What are the benefits? And finally, how can you get involved? So starting from the very beginning, why did we actually launch this program? Well, it comes down to this issue right here. The fact is, I don't need to tell you, the world has a lot of problems. I mean, when we think about the massive amount of clean energy that we need and the dirty energy that we're making, when we think about the piling up of garbage, the warming of the planet, or the diseases that we're having to deal with, whether it's COVID, cancer, or what have you, there's no shortage of problems. What's keeping me up at night is the fact that I'm not sure that we're training our students, especially our students in STEM, to be able to address these multifaceted problems. So that's really the driver, is to be able to train students when they're in college to solve these problems. So when they get out of college, they're ready to hit the ground running. The other reason why we developed the iCons program is the fact that we reckon that you as the attendees, so you as the first and second year students in the fields of STEM, you've been hearing about these problems for a long time. You've been thinking about them. Maybe you've gone into STEM fields with the idea that you're going to use that knowledge to try to solve these problems. You probably have some good ideas. You probably have some solutions. And it's high time that you have an opportunity in the classroom, the lab, and in research to pursue your own ideas. But the question is, how can you as a student in college actually move the needle on one of these really big problems? And so the philosophy in the iCons program is that you probably can't do it alone. You probably need some help. And so the idea is interdisciplinary science education, where if you're thinking about a problem in the field of biomedicine, maybe you're thinking about a problem in the field of energy, maybe you're thinking about a problem in some other area. It could be something like food or water or climate or whatever your interests are. Wouldn't it be good if you had a team with distributed kind of expertise? So you had an engineer, maybe a life scientist, maybe a physicist, maybe an earth scientist, a food scientist, maybe a psychologist, whatever expertise you would need to have on your team to help you to move the needle. So the idea is diverse teams of students working on today's big problems, and problems chosen by students, solutions designed by students. So the idea behind iCons is it's a program that fosters and really values diversity, equity, and inclusion, because these are powerful forces for solving these very complex problems. So that gives you sort of the big picture. The question is, how does iCons actually work? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about actually the program structure right now. So kind of the nuts and bolts of iCons. And what I'd like you to take away from this is the basic idea that iCons, these courses were built to count for stuff you already need to take, and that's why it's going to fit neatly into your schedule. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you what are the iCons courses, and I'm going to do it in a way assuming for this model that you're starting iCons as a first-year student. You could also start iCons as a second-year student. I'm going to show you that model as well. So here's a picture that kind of demonstrates the 4 years of college. And in the first year, so if you're a first-year student, your classes are about to start on Monday. I wish you luck. Good luck with that. What you would do in the fall semester is you would apply to iCons. There's also a workshop, an interesting workshop in the fall that I'll mention later. And then in the spring, if you decide to join iCons, you would take the 4-credit iCons 1 course. And in this course, you practice teamwork and you work on case studies on problems of your choosing. And I just list some examples here. For example, you might work on racial inequality and access to healthcare, or it could even be racial inequality in the face of climate. It could be this modeling the spread of COVID. That's what last year's class, iCons 1 class, worked on. Or it could even be trying to mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions coming from the UMass campus. Now in year 2, hopefully by then, of course, we'll be back on campus, or you could be studying abroad, and in the spring, you take the iCons 2 course, a 4-credit course that focuses on communication. In this case, we have 2 different sections, one on energy, one on biomed. where you learn to read, write, speak, discuss, debate on the issues that are relevant to your the problems that you're choosing to study. Then in year 3, in the spring, you take the iCons 3 course, another 4-credit course that focuses on lab. So you're putting the ideas that you've been thinking about, iCons 1 and 2, you're putting them into practice. But this is not like any science or engineering lab course you've ever taken before, because you're expected to come up with a real world problem and think about and design an experiment to move the needle on solving that problem. Then in year 4, you either do a year-long honors thesis or a year-long senior design project. And so you can think about iCons basically as 1 course per year for the first 3 years, plus a year-long senior project. Now, there's a variety of ways to flow through the iCons program, and to demonstrate that, I'd like to simplify the picture that I have here. So basically, it's iCons 1, iCons 2, iCons 3, iCons 4 in the fall, and iCons 4 in the spring. Now, if you decide to join iCons in the second year, so that's this model. So either if you're a first-year student right now and you'd like to get a year of college under your belt, or if you're a second-year student, then obviously you do some college for year 1. Then in year 2, you come into iCons, you apply, you take iCons in the spring semester of your second year. And the only difference is right here. You double up iCons 2 and 3 at the same time. And actually, Bridgie can speak to that because she did that this past spring. And then iCons 4 again is iCons 4 is spread over the senior year. And that's not the only way to do it. You can, if you decide maybe you want to study abroad in, say, year 2. So let's say you're away in year 2. So this is what it would look like. So you take iCons 1, year 1. Again, you double up iCons 2 and 3. In year 3, you're studying abroad, and then you finish up. And you can imagine there's a variety of ways that you can flow through the iCons program. Now, again, because of that, because of the flexibility, we've had obviously lots of students flow through. This shows 9 cohorts of students. Here's the 10th. I had to separate the 10th because they're a little wacky. This person is, I think, upside down here. But anyway, we've had 10 cohorts of students having been able to flow through the iCons program. And the key, the magic is that the iCons courses count for stuff you already need to take. So here's the details. So first of all the iCons courses count as honors level courses. So if you happen to be in the Commonwealth Honors College, then these courses count for that. However, I want to stress you do not have to be in the Commonwealth Honors College to get into iCons. So that's not a requirement. Also, all the iCons courses count for all these other courses that you need to take, whether it's a Gen Ed, junior writing, upper level lab, your integrative experience, honors thesis, or a senior design project. They all count. And so this is the way that students have been able to fit it in. So I've been talking a lot. You probably want to hear from students, and you will in just a couple minutes. But I also wanted to mention that there's a different way to hear about iCons from the viewpoint of students, which is we have a short video about 3 minutes about iCons from the perspective of students. And so this is on the iCons website, or if you just Google YouTube iCons UMass, this is the hit, this is the first hit. And so I encourage you to watch this video. It actually won an award, which is kind of cool. And I have to admit that every time I watch it, it kind of makes me kind of well up. It's a really cool video. So I hope you watch that. Now, there are other perks to iCons, and I want to mention them here. Actually, right now, one of the perks is on Wesley. He's wearing the iCons t-shirt. So we have some very excellent t-shirts. Now, obviously, you don't join a college program for the t-shirts, but I think we kind of all agree t-shirts are good. In addition to that, in addition to the t-shirts, we have targeted internship and career preparation. So we have an iCons industry consortium. So that's a bunch of companies who really understand iCons. They understand what we're trying to do, and they're thirsty to hire our students as both interns and full-time staff. We also have a very active alumni network. We've graduated several hundred students. They're all placed in the world doing jobs, and they want to work with you to help you to launch you into your career. We also have a new space, a student space. Obviously, we'll access the space when we're back on campus. And when we are back on campus, you're going to spend a lot of time in the space. Here's a picture of it. It's actually just showing, and there's Nick. There's Nick, by the way. This just shows about a third of the space. So it's a really wonderful space. It's an opportunity to do your work, to collaborate, to work on the case studies, but it's also a really important opportunity for students of different ages and stages within iCons to get to know each other and to build the networking. There's also opportunities for you to get your work seen and heard. We have a new aspect of the iCons website, which is the innovation portal, which is basically where your iCons work will be posted, and it's an opportunity for that work to impact the world. There's also the student podcast, and I think Nick is one of the leaders now of the student podcast, so I think he's probably going to talk about that when he has his chance and I actually shut up. Finally, iCons has funding to support you. So if you're eligible for scholarships or if you have an idea for research and you need funding, let us know. So now there's the question, what are the outcomes? And with the advanced training that you get in iCons and learning how to ask the right question and collaboration and communication and creative problem solving, you can imagine that companies want to get a hold of iCons students. And we've had excellent success in placing our students into their first choice of jobs, med schools, grad schools. Here's a picture, by the way, of another iCons senior, Maya, who's actually interning at UMass Med in Worcester, and her goal is basically to go to med school. And so that's an on-ramp for her to make her dream come true there. iCons students have won some outstanding awards, and so some of them are listed here, but what kind of really tickles me the most is our network of alums. They've been so turned on, so energized, so engaged by the iCons way of learning science and engineering through real world problems that they're bringing that energy and that excitement wherever they are, and they're placed really all over the country and all over the world. So with all that, what have I just told you? I've tried to tell you what is iCons. It's a certificate program for STEM students in real world problem solving, where you can pick the problem that you want to study in a way that fits within your major. You get to work with other students across the spectrum of STEM majors, making new friends, building your networks. I want to emphasize that iCons is admission by application. We just ask you to answer these three simple questions. Why are you interested in iCons? How does iCons help you to advance you in your career? And what's a big problem that you're interested in? What's the role of science and engineering to help solve that problem? So I'm just going to close with some important dates. We're obviously trying to answer all your questions with this webinar and with these slides, but you'll probably have some more questions. So we're going to have some additional information sessions. Those will be coming up in the second half of September. For the application, if you have any questions about how that works, we're going to have an application support session. Now, the application deadline is shown here, October 13th. You're going to find out about the admissions decision in early November, and sometime in the middle, we're going to have a fantastic workshop. We're still working on the speaker. It's a must not miss. This is going to be a speaker who you definitely will want to see, and so please check the iCons website for all info. And that's my spiel about iCons. I'm going to advance it to this slide, but last time somebody asked me to actually go back and keep the information on the screen, so I'm actually going to do that. I hope it's not too distracting, but there might be some people who would rather keep that information on there. So thank you so much for listening, and it's back to you, Wesley.
All right, thank you very much, Scott. We do have one question I wanted to pose to you right now. And what is the acceptance rate for the new cohort, a new cohort?
So that's a great question. We typically get between about 120 and 150 applications, and we normally try to fill 60 spots, 30 in the energy track and 30 in the biomed track. So let's say 60 out of 120 gives you a sense, about half.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, now if I can have Allie talk from an instructor perspective.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm going to share a little bit about the I2B perspective, share a little bit about that course and a little bit about my teaching that could give you some insight into what the iCons experience is like. So in a nutshell, I feel like I2B is a student-driven project-based course. That's really how I like to headline it. But it's also a course where you're going to build and work on and learn science writing and science communication skills, right? So it sort of has two things going on that I think are really important. We spend the first portion of the course in what I like to call topical exploration, where individual students are looking into topics that really interest them. And we're working on our writing skills and our communication skills while students are sort of driving the boat with things they're interested in thinking about, writing about, talking about in science. And then in the second half of the course, we move to that project-based, team-based work. And we spend the second half of the course in those teams. I wanted to talk about a little bit about how do we get into those, teams and project choices. And it's definitely in my class, it's through like a democracy. So all students develop interest and pitch a topic that they feel is worth researching. And then we do a series of voting where we narrow it down to the top 6. It depends on how many students are in the class, 5 or 6 project groups. Then students also really do have a voice and choice over the team they ultimately want to land on. If your topic didn't get pushed to the final project work, then you're still voting for where you want to be, which one you want to work on. And then behind the scenes, with the spirit of keeping groups very diverse and collaborative, we tend to give most students their first or second choice of where they're landing in their final project. So that's sort of how the course works along this idea of project-based. I definitely want to speak to the idea that in my worldview, that this biomedicine track is very loose to me. So I want to assure students that projects have run the gamut in my class. Biology, public health, environmental science, medicine, psychology, food and agriculture, even STEM education issues, STEM diversity issues, and disparities in STEM and its disparities in healthcare and medicine. These are all part of this, biomedicine track. I really want to emphasize that there's a lot of different diverse projects that go through iCons 2B. And I also do want to stress that iCons 2B is definitely an opportunity for each student to bring a passion topic with them, to really dig into something, learn about it, do some preliminary research on a topic, because that's how you get to that pitch. You really have a lot of power and opportunity to gain some peer buy-in, to gather allyship around your topic and get it to the final project group. So it's pretty exciting for students to be able to bring in their own interests and ideas. And then finally, I just want to talk about what things in my classroom kind of look and feel like, and they may look and feel a little bit different than a typical science classroom, or especially a large science classroom, in that I really practice around inclusion. So in my classroom, we spend a lot of time and we are deliberate about acknowledging the diversity in the classroom and acknowledging our lived experiences. you know, in the spirit of collaboration, we spend time building community together in the classroom through activities and you know, doing work together. You'll see my role is much more of a facilitator rather than an instructor. I get in there with you. I like to be part of all, you know, the group work that you're all doing. And I definitely want to add that, you know, because of my training in STEM justice, we always kind of give an outside look to you know, whatever we're thinking about, whatever science we're investigating, to really looking through a lens of STEM justice and social justice. So you'll see that as a theme kind of wound through iCons 2B. And then finally, I just want to definitely say that we have a lot of fun and we do a lot of science. So that's it. I'll give it back to Wesley.
Wonderful, thank you. I did have a question. Can you talk a little bit about a couple of the specific projects that you've worked on?
Sure.
2B?
Yeah, actually I did in preparation, I kind of went down memory lane because we've had so many really cool topics. Really lately, obviously this last semester, a lot of work around COVID, okay? A lot of work around coronavirus from different facets, different projects around coronavirus from a public health. So people wanted to look, compare the testing protocols that were used at the beginning of the pandemic in more of a public health frame. Other students were focusing in on the psychological impact of people under quarantine in the context of COVID. Over time, lots of interest and lots of projects that I would put under the idea of the overuse and the antibiotic resistance problem. So we've had very interesting projects that maybe were specific to investigating a particular biomolecule that could be a substitute for antibiotics, to thinking about more personalized medicine around bacterial infections, where using sequencing to really determine what treatments are most appropriate for a disease rather than just over-prescribing. Lots of interest around microbiome, around soil microbiome, people microbiomes, and even ecosystems. Plastic degradation. There's been several different approaches to plastic degradation that have been really interesting, from the idea of like using microbes to degrade plastic, to using actual nematodes to degrade plastic. And then the final one I just want to mention, because it's actually one of my favorites, is sort of investigating as sort of in the idea of not the whole world not being on board with Western medicine. What are some ways that we can really help people who may eschew Westernized medicine? So some investigations into using more natural approaches, more naturally occurring molecules as treatments that may garner buy-in from people who are not comfortable with Westernized medicine. A very interesting sort of social justice take on helping people. So there's a few.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. That's wonderful. Sure. Okay, well, again, thank you, Allie. And I'm now going to have Nick Naiman talk from our student perspective. So, Nick, take it away.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to talk about the perspective of iCons from, a student going through it, some of my experiences being on the biomed track, and then I'd like to tell you guys a little bit about some of the research and opportunities I got, not only outside of iCons, but also specifically during the last class I took, which was I3. So in terms of describing iCons, I think for me, iCons is really all about giving you the tools that you need to be a successful scientist. Mainly, and this can involve like the development of hard skills, like specific skills like microscopy, or cell culture or something like that. But also soft skills like science communication, public speaking, and most importantly, how to work in a team of scientists. It's a little analogy we like to use in the whole icons world is we compare the icons teams, and you'll work within a variety of teams throughout the icons experience, but comparing the teams we work in to like the Avengers and how each member contributes something to the team. However, it's not necessarily only one person's responsibility to contribute their expertise, I guess, in their own way. For example, I myself am a microbiologist. I've worked with, had physicists in my groups. I've had environmental scientists in my groups. And that doesn't mean that I only contribute my passion and knowledge for microbiology and that's it. But I think one of the real rewarding experiences from working with other students from different majors, which you don't get to do a lot in a lot of your classes. Usually in lots of your classes, you'll go and sit down, you might introduce yourself to your neighbor and like, what's your major? And you're in a microbiology class, it's likely microbiology. You don't get to speak to physicists too much. And I think that's a real shame because, as I was saying, one of the most rewarding things about working in these teams is I get to learn how to think like a physicist does, or I get to learn how to look at a problem from a perspective that's not necessarily the major that I'm most comfortable with. And I think that's an important thing to be able to do as a scientist. And I think it's one of the ways in which I've grown a lot through the program. And I really do, whenever people want to learn more about it or, are thinking about joining, I really do push them to try it out because it may be uncomfortable and difficult at first, but now teamwork is something I thought I was good at before. You've probably done group projects in high school and stuff, but it's really not, it's really different in the whole icons experience. To speak a little bit about what my experience in the biomed track has been, it's been actually a bit of an unconventional one because for my for my second icons class, I was actually in the renewable energy class. There was a little scheduling error and there was some overfill in one of the classes. So I was in the renewable energy one. At first, I was a little, confused, and I was really wondering how am I going to demonstrate and practice my passion within renewable energy. I remember thinking, what does microbiology have to do with renewable energy? But I think it was honestly one of the best icons classes and experiences I've had because it taught me how to look at my major in a way that I could have never imagined. Ali had talked about how one of the past projects they've done in her classes, microbes which degrade plastic, and that was actually my project for that class. And we ended up, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of anaerobic digesters, food composters, and stuff like that. Our idea was actually to take that concept, instead fill it with bacteria and microorganisms which can degrade plastic much more efficiently than our normal recycling methods that we use today can. And I think it was really rewarding for me to be able to see my major in a different dimension and to think in a way that I would have never really imagined I could have thought before. If I were to speak a little bit about my most recent icons experience, it's probably one of, again, I don't know, it's so hard to compete with all these different experiences I've had, but it's one of the more exciting ones. It was actually an experience that Bridgie and I took and tried together. Scott had given us the opportunity to really get into the real world, and instead of developing a problem and working and designing experiments to solve it ourselves, he actually paired us with a biotech startup company. And for that semester, we were research interns for that company. It was a company which was trying to design a smart Band-Aid in order to speed up healing faster. I was bringing my microbial expertise. Bridgie was bringing her mechanical engineering expertise. There was a lot of teaching to each other throughout the semester, and there were some things that neither of us knew how to do, and we had to go and find an expert on campus to learn about it ourselves. We designed, we were drawing up diagrams, We were enhancing the current Band-Aid model they were giving us. We came up with all these, really cool experiments to do by ourselves, not really overseen or had any supervision by any one body. It was really as if we were working in a biotech company, and it was really cool. That opportunity had even dominoed, and Bridgie and I were actually recruited to this other biotech company because of the good work that they saw us do in that one. And these people are developing face masks for coronavirus, specifically ones that are easier to breathe through, electrically powered, very fancy, high-tech face masks. So that's what we've actually been working on this summer, and we would have never even gotten that opportunity if it wasn't for the I3 experience. So I think, there's so many opportunities in iCons. I think one thing that you really need to remember is that you need to put yourself out there. You need to, when the opportunities present themselves to you, you need to tackle them. And you'll learn a lot about yourself, your peers, and, your passions and major. But I guess if I have to kind of close off, I'd like to talk briefly about the other opportunities outside of the classroom that exist within iCons. Mainly, the A Little About a Lot iCons student podcast. It was a podcast that was created 1 or 2 years ago by some students who were very passionate in science communication. And it started out as a group of 2 or 3 people. I believe we have about 10 people on the podcast team. I'm going to drop a link to our website. But yeah, we interview experts on topics that we find interesting. We've done episodes on the neuroscience of how birds communicate to each other and recognize each other's songs. We've done episodes on BPA in water bottles. If you ever had a water bottle that says BPA free, what does that mean? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? We actually have an episode. I have a meeting for the podcast right after this. We're planning to release a new episode called Coronavirus Affected and Infected. So please do check it out. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, most every place you may watch a podcast. And if you don't have any of those things, you can also listen to it for free on our website. In addition to that, we also have a blog. So if you're a little microphone shy and you don't really want to have your voice, you can still practice science communication, writing op-eds and articles, which you'll see on our website. If you guys make into iCons, we'd love for you to stop by a couple meetings. What's really been exciting about that is that none of us really know how to do a podcast, and we've had to learn other skills that aren't necessarily specific to science communication, like audio engineering and interviewing skills. And it's been a really rewarding experience for me. Everybody is a little happy family, and it's great. So yes, please check out the podcast. And then the one other last experience I'd like to briefly talk about, Scott had mentioned it briefly, but the alumni organization, they go by ICANN instead of iCons, but they're really, I cannot stress you enough, have been so helpful throughout my entire tenure at iCons. Especially now being a rising senior, I've been having little Zoom calls with them. They'll tell me about all the crazy places they work, whether it's Mass General or the Broad Institute or for labs for MIT and Harvard, and tell me their experiences, any opportunities that may exist in these places. They have little networking nights when you can go and meet them, and they will really act as mentors for you and help you find opportunities and anything you would even want from a mentor. And also last summer, I had the opportunity to do some volunteer work with them. We went to the JA Institute at MIT, which is a summer camp for high school students who are interested in science. And we actually ran through one of these icons type case studies with them. And it was really cool. And it not only was it a bonding experience for myself and the other alumni, but it was a really cool experience to do and be a part of. So lots of opportunities for growth, for careers, for passion. So please, I encourage you all to apply for the iCons program.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Nick. And now I'd like Bridgie to talk about her experience.
Hello. So I wanted to talk to you guys today a little bit about the differences in the two tracks. So I actually took Icons 2 and 3 at the same time this past semester. And I took Icons 2 on the renewable energy track, and then Icons 3, me and Nikki did the research on the biomed side of things. So for Icons 2, we actually had a really good opportunity to work on a problem that is relevant to UMass right now, which is UMass's goal to become carbon neutral by 2030. So Chancellor Subaswamy set that goal for us, which is it's a very, it's a big goal. So our goal for this recent class in Icons 2 was to kind of figure out our own solutions to reducing carbon emissions on campus. So my group, we all split up into groups and came up with different ideas. My group was to implement living buildings on campus, and those are pretty much just green buildings that produce over 100% of the building's energy demand. So we each came up with our own idea, worked it out in the class, and then we presented our ideas to the Carbon Mitigation Task Force at UMass. So that was a really cool opportunity to all work together and then come up with one final solution, and then present it and see what people thought of our ideas. And then at the same time, I was in Icons 3. So as Nikki talked about, we did some research for 21st Biotech, which was the startup company. And the work that we did actually kind of forged a new path for Icons, which we're really excited about, because usually for Icons 3, the research is kind of divided up into sections. So you could go the biomed track or the renewable energy track. But for this opportunity, we could work with an outside company and kind of put our own spin on things and do some work that was actually going to make a difference for a legit company. So it worked out so well for us. We're really hoping that future Icon students will have the ability to follow in the same track that we did. So yeah, I think the best part of Icons for me so far has definitely been this past semester working in Icons 3, doing research for the outside company, just because it's such a unique experience for any student. In Icons, we experience so many different opportunities, chances to work with different students of different majors, opinions, scientific backgrounds. But this was really going one step above and beyond to collaborate with an outside company, because you get so much more experience, such a different way of thinking and applying your skills to problems that you may not have thought about before. And you really kind of put your foot in the door to furthering your career when you work with people that kind of know a little bit more than you do. So that's definitely been my favorite experience so far. And I also wanted to say, if anyone has any qualms about fitting study abroad or any other opportunities into the Icons program, it's absolutely manageable to take 2 classes at the same time. So either Icons 2 and 3, well, yeah, that's what it would be. But any semester that you want to take them at the same time, it's definitely manageable. So you can fit study abroad or any other opportunity you want into the Icons program.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Bridgie. Well, that concludes our panelists. I'd like to open up to our Q&A session, and this one is for Scott. Scott, we have a lot of computer scientists that registered and I believe on the call today. And I'm just curious, they had a question, as many majors do, do people in that department usually join Icons and fit, and are there projects that will excite them that they can be involved in?
Yeah, thank you for that. That's an excellent question. We have had several computer science students come into Icons. And when I think about why that's a good fit, I think of 2 things. The first is that computer scientists at the end of the day create solutions. I think that's the terminology of the field. They create solutions. And what Icons helps you to do is to practice scoping out a problem. It helps you to look at a problem, a real world problem, a societal problem. Think about, well, what is the heart of the problem? What do we need to do? And then what's a viable, a sustainable, elegant solution? And at the end of the day, that's what computer scientists are doing all the time. So from a certain sort of habit of mind, iCons is perfect for computer scientists. The other thing is that we're dealing with data all the time. Oftentimes we're dealing with big data, and I know sometimes there's a little bit of a distinction between a computer scientist and an information scientist, but having the skills to be able to create algorithms to sift through and analyze data is a huge skill that certainly employers will want to see. And having the opportunity to practice that skill, the data science skill in the context of a real world problem is something that's kind of unique, and that would put you head and shoulders above.
Allie, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I could also second that, Scott. Speaking to the computer science majors out there, I say with emphasis, we need you in iCons. I could specifically off the top of my head just say that in the last semester, one of the COVID groups, they could have really utilized a computer scientist on their team, because they were thinking about doing a comparison of country responses toward a more globalized, pandemic response. And so they were really going to think about, like, what are big data sources? How do we get those? What are the logistics of that? They could have used expertise around the area of large data sets, how to manage them, how to mine them. Another one that jumps to mind was sort of in the vein of computer scientists creating solutions, was a group a few maybe 2 years back they were interested in evaluating apps for cognitive improvement in the context of Alzheimer's disease. So there's apps and things out there that you're supposed to do. They wanted to make do a kind of a synthesis to say, are these even evidence-based? What and further, what would an app need to have? What would it need to do? What kind of evidence-based psychological cognitive things should we be doing? If they were psychology major, biology major, public health major. If they had a computer science collaborator on their team, I think they could have pushed that even further to really speak to the design of a new and a better app to based on what they found, in what's out there already. So those are just two, examples of real projects that computer science majors would have fit in well. And then the final thing I just really want to emphasize to the computer sciences scientists in the room is that in real life, I currently work on a project right now, a collaborative team, and part of my collaborative team are computer scientists and UMass undergraduate computer science majors. The problem we're trying to solve is getting quality inquiry-based education to incarcerated youth. And we have a lot of impediments to doing that. The most obvious is no internet. So we're designing an app that can actually provide inquiry-based ecology experiences to kids who are locked up. We need the computer scientists. They are designing the app. They are designing the infrastructure. They're solving all of our problems to make a really robust set of content that will work without internet connectivity. So there's just a further extension to there's real life science collaboration going on right at UMass, where it's biologists, special education folks, and people who particularly work within social justice, and computer scientists, all trying to solve a problem. So there's a real life example.
Great, thank you very much. This next question is for Bridgie. Bridgie, I'd love it if you were able to discuss a little bit about workload, time commitment from an iCons class. One participant asked about, if I'm taking some other honors courses, can I really do this as an honors course? But I think that goes into the whole workload commitment. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So icons classes, the workload is no more than a regular honors class. I would say, it depends on how many classes a student is taking at the same time, but I definitely do think it is manageable to take other honors courses as well as icons. That's what I did. It does depend on how many other courses you're taking. But icons classes, since they count for your already required classes, it's not going to be any more work than you would already be taking. On that note, I will say it's not uncommon for students to kind of be so focused in the work that we're doing, and the icons work is always so interesting and out of the box that most students do a little bit more work on their own time just because it's so interesting, but it's definitely not required. The workload is very manageable, and also there's tons of voluntary stuff you can do on the side, helping out at events, stuff like that. So there's always voluntary work you do, and there's more work if you want to do some work on your own, but the normal amount is no more than a regular honors.
Great, thank you. Scott, I have several process questions. Are you able to share the class schedule?
Sure.
I guess I'd say for a 4-year program.
Mm-hmm.
That was asked, and someone asked, our courses in the spring, and as you can see from the chart, other than icons 4, everything is in the spring.
Yep, everything's in the spring. Yep.
Another one question regarding classes. So, is someone asked about I3 and how the research is done? If you could briefly talk about I3.
Okay, so I3, icons 3, is basically the idea is that icons is a STEM program, science, technology, engineering, and math. And so icons 3 is where you put some laboratory practice into that. So I kind of think about it like a sandwich, in the sense that oftentimes when we do science, you're given a science question, or you're given like a laboratory recipe in a typical science lab, and what you're trying to do is practice the skill, do the lab that about a gajillion other people have done. And so there are other labs, you'll take biology labs, chemistry labs, where you're asked to do that. So you have enough of that. So icons doesn't want to do that. What icons wants to do in icons 3 is ask you the question, what's a societal problem that's important to you? And then what is the science and engineering that needs to be done to move the needle on that problem? You know, oftentimes we can't solve a problem because we don't know enough. So we have to answer some questions, but it's up to you as the student to decide what societal problem is important to you, what question needs to be posed to move the needle. Then you have to design the study to answer the question. Then after that, you have to communicate. You have to communicate the findings to some appropriate audience. So it's, in a sense, you can think about the icons 3 research as kind of like a warm-up. So this is like a warm-up for the year-long project that you have here. So I hope that that's, and I should emphasize that right now we have 2 sections of icons 3, one energy, one biomed. But obviously you've already heard that Bridgie and Nick did a totally different kind of icons 3 experience. And so what we hope to have in the future is a variety of different ways that students can sort of satisfy the requirement of icons 3, which is doing real world problem-based motivated lab work. And yeah, so that's basically the point of it.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to stay with you.
Okay.
And a question, is someone on an exploratory track able to apply to icons?
Yeah, so we have exploratory tracks. And so if you have expressed an interest in science, so let's say you're in an exploratory track and say the College of Natural Sciences, the College of Engineering, College of Information Computer Sciences, maybe School of Public Health, any of those that have a foundation in STEM, then absolutely you're invited to apply, because the idea is that you're probably going to pick a major in one of those colleges. And those are all the colleges that are feeding us our iCons STEM students. If you're in an exploratory track in, say, the College of Humanities and Fine Arts, or Social and Behavioral Sciences, then that's not as good of a fit, because you need a really solid science foundation to succeed in iCons. But if you're in, say, natural sciences, engineering, or any of those exploratory tracks, you're absolutely invited to and encouraged to apply.
Okay. Can sophomores apply? Second year students?
Yes, they can. And so that's why we created this. So sophomores, so year 2, you have a year of college under your belt. And so right now you're about to start your second year. You apply to iCons. You take iCons in the spring of your sophomore year. You then take, iCons 1 in the spring of your sophomore year. You then take iCons 2 and 3 in the spring of your junior year. And we can work with you on the advising to make sure that that fits. It takes a little bit extra work on the advising to plan out your career to make sure that that fits. But we've had plenty of very successful students come in as second year students. And so the short answer is absolutely.
Great. Got a lot of questions coming in. And if a student defers to spring, can they enroll?
Yeah, so I think this goes, I think the idea is, if you're a student, I'm assuming that's an example of a first year student deferring to spring?
Yes.
Okay, so if you're a first year student, you're deferring to spring, then you would still apply now. And what you would do is, if you come in the spring, then if you get into iCons and if you decide to do iCons, you would take iCons 1 in the spring of your first year. But the point is that if you're deferring to spring, you still apply by the October 13th deadline.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Allie, are you able to, we're getting close to our time, so I will not be able to get to every question, but are you able to speak briefly about how iCons may be different if we are working remote in the spring?
Sure. I can just briefly say that, you know, we, the faculty, have been thinking and talking about this. So if we have to be remote in the spring, we fully feel like iCons is going to proceed as normal. We feel that we will still be able to facilitate all of the principles of iCons, teamwork, group building, community building. We're all of us are, you know, thinking and working diligently about ways that we can be a virtual community online, but we don't see anything major changing about iCons, except that we're not going to be able to be together in the same room. I'm trying to think. I don't know if Scott has anything to add really quickly to that.
Yeah, I think everything Allie says is absolutely true. I mean, of course, we had to finish up iCons this past spring, 2020. We had to go home. Everybody went home and we finished up iCons. And I know I've talked to, you know, Bridgie, for example, was in my class. And so maybe she can speak to this. But there's a question of maintaining motivation. If you're doing college, but you're not sort of in the classroom. And what I heard from a lot of the end of year reflections from students is that the iCons class was the place where they were absolutely able to maintain motivation, because they felt like they're actually working on something real, where their work would have an impact. And I don't know, Bridgie, if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. I think a lot of my other classes, it was easy to kind of fizzle out and not focus as hard because you're not surrounded by the same people that you're usually doing work with. and it's not the same environment. But for my icons class, it was definitely the class that A, I was both the most interested in, and B, it was easiest to stay motivated because the group work that we were doing was very deadline oriented. So we would all text or email or whatever at a scheduled time, and then we would meet at specific times during the week. So it was very easy to keep on track. And we are also interested in the work that we kept doing it the same amount that we would have if we were on campus.
Great, thank you. So I will be answering all the questions that are still left in the queue. We will post those on the iCons website, and I'll let everyone know about that when those are done. I'd like to just have Scott take us on out.
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you, Wesley. I want to thank the panelists, Dr. Hunter, Bridgie Driscoll, Nick Naiman, for their time today. I'd like to thank all of the attendees for sharing your time. And I just want to say that, the semester starting on Monday, the 24th, it's not like any semester we've ever had before. So that's a bit strange, a bit weird. But at the same time, when we think about the cause, there's a real world problem at the heart of this. And one of my favorite phrases that I've heard about icons is every real world problem is a wonderful educational opportunity. And we need that for two reasons. We need that because we need people to be able to solve problems. And you as students need to chew on these problems so that when you're done with college, you're all-star problem solvers. So at the end of the day, when we look at the world and we scratch our head and we say, God, this place is weird, it's because there's a real world problem at the heart of what's making things weird. And that's just a reminder that we need to practice solving these problems. We need every opportunity, and icons gives you that opportunity. So I really hope, for the benefit of icons, you will apply. And again, I just want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.